Yeah, I don't think the odds are great that I'm actually going to finish all of these. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to be talking about the top 10 series I want to read in 2022. So this is a mix of both some series that I have already started that I want to finish, with quite a few that I have not started out yet. And like I said in the intro, I find it highly unlikely I'll actually get to all of these, but this is just a look at some series I really would like to focus on and get as many of these done as possible. A lot of them are series that have been on my list for a long time to get to, that I haven't. So I'm excited to get to all of these. It's not going in any specific order, and immediately after making the 10, I then was reminded of two more series. So we'll do 10, and then there's a bonus too. So it's technically going to be a top 12. But I'm not going in any specific order. These aren't ranked, but just going through and talking about each one. So first is a series that I'm really interested to try. The problem is it's really, really long. There are 10 books out so far in the Wars of Light and Shadow by Janny Wirtz. I have 3 of these, and they're from different arcs too. 2 of them are from the Alliance of Light. One of them is from Ships of Marilor, and there are like 5 different arcs. I think books from the first 4 are mostly out. The 5th arc is now. So this is like a really in-depth, very, very specific, hardcore fantasy series, and I'm really, really excited to read it. I've read the first chapter of the first book, Curse of the Mistwraith, which I have on my Kindle. That is all I've read of it so far, but I'm really, really excited to read it. It's just the fact that it's such a long series of very dense, long books. So this one will be a struggle, but I'm planning on getting through at least some with doing some buddy reads with it with some other people around a different Discord. And so I'm hoping to at least get some of it, because it's a series I'm really, really excited to read. It's the next really big series that I am wanting to do. Next up is The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. And at this point, I'm reading City of Dragons, which is book 3 in the Rainwild Chronicles. So I just have Blood of Dragons, and then the Fits in the Fool trilogy. So Fool's Assassin, Fool's Quest, Fool's Fate left. These I absolutely will be finishing, because doing one a month. So with City of Dragons is February, Blood of Dragons March, so April, May, June. So yeah, in June, so halfway through the year, this will for sure be done. This is a series that is one of my, this is the most anticipated series for me to finish. Rainwild Chronicles I have not liked a whole lot, but I am so excited for Fitz and the Fool, so really, really excited to get to this. This has been another one that's been a really long time coming, because of the fact that I've read so far 11 books. I'm reading the 12th. I still have 4 to go. So, I mean, it's a very long series, 16 total books in it, mostly in trilogies, with Rainwild's being 4. So there's a lot. And I've also read Piebald, The Willful Princess and the Piebald Prince. I do have The Inheritance, too, which is over here. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's kind of small. But The Inheritance, which is a collection of short fiction, which at least some of it, if not all of it, is based on Realm of the Elderlings, so I absolutely plan on reading that too. I have loved this series overall. It's definitely, between the Farseer and the Tawny Man trilogy, some of my favorite series of all time, so I'm absolutely super excited to get to this, and this one at least I know I will finish. So next up is the Chronicles of the Unhewn Throne trilogy. Starts with Emperor's Blades by Brian Staveley, the other books being The Providence of Fire and The Last Mortal Bond. This is another series that had been on my list for a while. I actually had the first book for quite some time and got this really early into me watching booktube videos and hadn't gotten to it quite yet. Then I won the whole trilogy in a contest, and so I'm like, I really, really need to get to this. I know that there are some people who are reading Emperor's Blades this month, so if I can somehow get through my whole TBR and edit it, I definitely will, which would help to get started with this series. But this is one I've been really excited to try. It has to do with basically the Emperor dies, and then all of the Emperor's kids are all different places, and trying to basically fight to retain control. And it's supposed to be really, really good. There's follow-up too, so there's a lot to read here, and it's a series I've needed to get to for a while. So I really am hoping that I can get to this finally. This is one I definitely, since just at least the trilogy, I should really be able to get through. Some of these, as I talk more and more, I you know, they may have more books, or I may just not be able to get to them, but I'm really, really hoping for this one because I've had it for too long. I need to read it. All right, next up is Of Blood and Bone by John Gwynne. First book of this being Time of Dread, and then we have A Time of Blood and A Time of Courage. So this trilogy, of course, a follow-up to Faithful and Fallen. Faithful and the Fallen is a series that made my top 10 fantasy series list of all time. So definitely something I'm interested in continuing with this series. This is another one I actually got these books over the holidays, so I haven't had them very long. But I've heard it can help to take a break from Faithful and Fallen before going right into these, so it's been a bit. So another series that I'm excited to get to. This takes place, I think, around 100 years or so after Faithful and the Fallen, and kind of chronicles the aftermath. So I'm interested because it's, you know, obviously the same world, same timeline. I imagine there will be some characters that make appearances, but I'm really interested to try this one as well. So just to continue with John Gwynne and go from there, really excited to get to this one also. All right, so the next one is a carryover from 2021. It's a series I really, really wanted to read in 2021, and I did not get to. Kept having to put it off, but I really, really want to get to it. And that is the second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever. This starts with The Wounded Land, and then we have The One Tree, and White Gold Wielder. I read the first trilogy actually in 2020. I think I read all of them in 2020. It was really early on in my channel. And it was a series that definitely took me some getting used to. The first book, I'm like, this is good, but like, what the heck? The second book really, really picked it up for me. And just, I had a few things. And the third book I just thought was near flawless. So, a series I really enjoyed. I've really been excited to see where it's going to go based on how the first Chronicles ended. So I've had these. I have the 4 books that came out much later as well for Thomas Covenant. And I really, really just like need to read these. So this is another one. I mean, all of these are series I really want to read, hence the name of the video. But I'm really hoping I can finally get to these, because then at some point I still need to read 4 more in this series. So it's a gift that keeps on giving with Thomas Covenant. I even have Donaldson stuff that comes after this too that I won't read until I'm done with this. So definitely something I need to get going on. All right, so the next series is one I definitely know. I've had, whenever I say I haven't read it yet, people are like, oh my gosh, how have you not read it yet? And I do have the 3 bind-ups, which that probably helps clue in, of the first part. So Riyria Revelations, starting with Theft of Swords, and then with Rise of Empire and Era of Novran. So these are, it's like, I think each one is 2 books, so it's the 3 volumes, but I'm basically treating them as like 3 decently long books. Yes, I have not read Riyria Revelations yet. I know I'm like one of the only people I feel like on BookTube that hasn't. These have really, really gotten around and become very, very popular. Now, I read Nolan, which is the newest Michael Sullivan book. I thought it was pretty good, but I really want to read these. I've heard some mixed things about some of the other stuff in the world, but these at least I really, really want to get to. So another one that I'm hoping I can get a start on. The first book's pretty long. I know it's 2 actual books, but it's like 650-ish, around 650 pages, so it's a decent book. I always say if it's under, is it 600 or 400, then it's a short book. I think 600. So it's technically over the threshold of even my poor standards of what makes a short book. But the others look a little bit shorter, but it's definitely a series I need to get to. I know I need to get to it. I've heard about, I think, Royce and Hadrian, I think, are the main characters. I've heard about it so much, so definitely it is. I'm trying to right the wrong of me not having read this yet. I am working on it, I promise, so don't yell at me, BookTube. Alright, so next we have a series that definitely is getting it up pretty long in there, but probably no surprise if you've seen me talk about or any of the live shows about Long Price Quartet. I've been loving Long Price Quartet. I recently just put out a review for Age of Ash, Daniel Abraham's new book, which I'm enjoying. So in the meantime, waiting for the rest of that series to go out, I do want to read Dagger and Coin. Now, I've been super lucky to get all of these books because I actually got the first 2 books, The Dragon's Path and The King's Blood, both for $1 at a Dollar Tree. So couldn't really pass that up. I got the first one. I couldn't believe when I found the second one there. And then the other 3, which these are in less good shape, but I was able to get the other 3 at half-price books. They had 3 through 5. I already had 1 and 2. It was absolutely perfect. These are a bit long, and I'm assuming it's going to be a fairly slow series because that's kind of Abraham's MO. But I have definitely gotten to the point where I want to read all of Daniel Abraham's stuff. I still will read The Expanse eventually, the thing he did with a partner, but it's the fantasy I'm more interested in. So I'm really, really excited to read this. This one I probably will take it slow because I think it'll be nice to have plenty of Daniel Abraham to read in between releases of his new series so that I'm not constantly just like waiting for that next book. So I probably will do this one a little bit slower, but it's definitely something on my list to get going with. Fun fact, if you look really quickly before I tell you what it is, you can notice the book that's gone from the shelf. That's why I'm doing this with so many cuts, because I started getting the books out and like, this is like half of my shelf I'm getting out. So I decided to pause and go through each one. But next up is the Chorus of Dragons series by Jen Lyons. So I read the first book, Root of Kings. It was picked from the first time I did BookTube Spin. It had been on my list. I'd had it for a while. And I enjoyed the book. It was kind of weird, but I did enjoy it. And so I managed to get all of the next three in hardcover. Really, really good prices. I think all of these I've gotten on Book Outlet as they've come out, basically. And so I do like... House of Always has a pretty cool cover here. So that's book 4. But The Name of All Things, Memory of Souls, and then House of Always. I think this is a planned 5 books. So I think there is still another book yet to come out. So if I can get to these, and assuming, you know, I enjoy it and keep going and want to, then I could hopefully lead up to the conclusion coming out. But yeah, this is one of those series where I have a bad habit of I just keep buying books in a series, even if I haven't read them yet. I have at least read the first one. But so I'm hoping I like this. Like I said, the first one I enjoyed, but it was very different. And so I'm really, really curious to see how I'll feel about this series. And I have them, so definitely planning to continue on with it and find out. Alright, and so next up is the Raven's Shadow Trilogy by Anthony Ryan. So I actually just got done reading Bloodsong. There will be a review coming out for that, but I just got done reading it. I don't have Book 2, Tower Lord, but I do have Queen of Fire, Book 3. So I'll need to get Book 2, obviously, before I can read it. I really like Bloodsong. I have heard Books 2 and 3 of this trilogy are not as good, but still generally worth a read. And I definitely liked Bloodsong enough that I'm curious to see where this goes. I also have several other Anthony Ryan books, but I need to get through this first. So I'm curious to see. I've definitely had books where people like say like they don't like where it went, and I don't mind it as much, and I've had some that I agree. So I'm interested to try this for myself and just see where it goes, because Bloodsong I thought was a really well done book that I had few complaints on. So I'll be interested to see where it goes. Definitely want to give this a read too after, of course, I get the second book. That would be helpful to have. Alright, so the final book in the 10 before we get to the 2 bonus ones, or series, I suppose this is all about series, is the Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft. So far I only have the first book, Send Then Ascends. There was a buddy read on this that was happening at the end of 2021 I was going to join, and I just ended up not having time to get to it. So I've heard a lot of good things and some mixed things about this series, but it definitely sounds like a series I would enjoy. So it's one I've really been meaning to get to. Of course, I'd have to get the rest of the books here, but I do have the first one at least to get this in. This is one I just know based on other people who have very similar taste, or whose taste I like a lot. Have really, really enjoyed this, so I think I'm going to enjoy this as well. So definitely will be excited to get to that one. So then we have a couple of bonus ones, because like I said, 10 series, many of which I haven't even started yet, apparently isn't enough, and I'm a masochist. So I do have a couple of bonus ones, because I was going through and getting my list of 10 was way too easy. Then keeping it to 10 was a little harder. So I've limited it to just 2 other bonus ones, other series that I would like to read at some point this year. So the first one is the Prince of Nothing trilogy. I know there is a series that comes after this, it's all the same world, but at least the Prince of Nothing trilogy by R. Scott Baker, with the first book starting with The Darkness That Comes Before. I'd really like to read this. This is one I have heard so many good things about this series overall in the writing, and I'm very intrigued to get started on this, so that is definitely one I want to read. I only have the first book so far, but it sounds like this is one of those series that's hard to find matching copies, so maybe this will be one I do ebooks of, but I have the first book, so I'm at least ready for that. And so that's one I I know too, I've specifically, several people in the Discord like Narcel, I'm like, I will read it at some point, I promise. And so definitely it's one that I do need to get to, and I figured I can't not include that somewhere on this list, so I really needed to. And finally, the second bonus is the Book of the Ancestor by Mark Lawrence. Starts with Red Sister, and then Gray Sister, and then Holy Sister. So this one, I have heard some mixed things too. I know a lot of people really love this, and this was a series that for a lot of people, like, this is why they started reading Lawrence. I had heard about this being popular, but I wanted to go back and start with his earlier books. So I've read Broken Empire, which I really, really liked, and The Red Queen's War, which I really, really liked. The two of them together ended up just scratching the surface onto my top 10 list. So I'm really interested to do this one. I know this is not the same world, but I really like Lawrence's writing. I've enjoyed the first 6 books of his that I have read. And I know a lot of people like this, some people not as much, but it's a series I'm meant to get. I got them on a sale and got all 3 of them. These are some of the few books that I actually, on purpose, bought in mass market paperback. So I have the rest of his books in mass market, although I ended up getting this beautiful hardcover of Red Queen's War as well. So that one's different, but I figured I'd just stick with the cheaper mass market paperback for these. But I'm really curious to see how this one goes, and so it's another series that was definitely on the list. So that is my 10-ish, really 12 series I would like to read in 2022. There are so many other series, and there are probably lots of other things I'll end up starting, maybe even finishing instead of these, because I added this up, and this was like just the 10, I think, not even including the bonus ones, is over 40 books total, which, looking at my, that's more than half of what I think I read total books last year. Which I did have some slow starts, so I am hoping to have 2022 be a year where I pick up and read many, many more books. I've started to pace off pretty well this year so far, I feel like, in January, and so I need to really, really keep the pace going, and then hopefully I can get through, because I'd really like to read and finish as many of these series as possible. Though, of course, like I said, I'm sure other stuff will get in, and I'll be super behind if I revisit this next year, like at the beginning of the year, and see how well I did. Hopefully it's okay, at least. That's what I'm hoping for. But let me know if you've read any of these, if there are any of these that you think are absolutely should be at the top of the list for me to prioritize over others. Always curious. I know most of these are pretty popular and pretty well liked. A couple of them are a little less known, but I'm always really, really curious to hear everybody's thoughts on all of these. So let me know if you're going to be reading any of them, or if you have read them. Of course, make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description for the Wizardly Duo Discord if you want to chat books, any of these books, any other books, or really just anything. It's a lot of fun, and we would love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.